All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack the code on one of the greatest political poems ever written. Seriously, it's this incredible story of rebellion, ambition, and a whole bunch of secret identities hidden right there in plain sight.
So let's start with something truly ancient and, well, heartbreaking. This is the cry of a father, a king, no less, who's just lost his favorite son in a civil war that the son himself started.
Yeah, this story, it comes straight from the Bible, the second book of Samuel, to be exact. And it's the classic, tragic tale of King David and his son Absalom, who was apparently ridiculously handsome and super popular.
So here's the setup, and it's like something out of a prestige TV show, right? You've got Absalom feeling overlooked and kind of resentful. Then this shady advisor, Achitophel, gets in his ear and just fans the flames of his ambition. Next thing you know, Absalom uses his popularity to declare himself king, and his own father, David, has to literally run for his life. In the end, though, the rebellion totally fails, Absalom gets killed, and, well, that brings us back to David's famous cry of grief.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. What if this whole ancient story was actually a secret code? Because fast forward to 1681, and the poet John Dryden does something incredible. He takes this exact story and uses it as a brilliant disguise to talk about a super dangerous political crisis happening in England right then and there. What he did was create this direct allegory. I mean, he literally mapped the entire biblical drama onto the complete chaos of 17th century English politics. He turned these ancient figures into stand-ins for the most powerful men in the kingdom at the time.
And this chart just lays the code out perfectly. You've got the wise but kind of worn-down King David. Well, that's King Charles II. The handsome, popular, but rebellious son Absalom? That's the Duke of Monmouth, Charles's illegitimate but very Protestant son. And the wicked, scheming advisor Achitophel? Who could that be? None other than the Earl of Shaftesbury, a seriously powerful politician who is trying to pull all the strings.
So what was this real-world crisis all about? I mean, why did you need a secret biblical code just to talk about it? Well, you have to remember, in an age where criticizing the king could literally get you executed for treason, using an allegory wasn't just clever, it was a survival tactic. The whole situation was an absolute powder keg of religion, power, and who had the right to rule.
And man, things got heated fast. Just look at this timeline. It all kicks off in 1678 with something called the Popish Plot, which, by the way, was a completely fabricated conspiracy about Catholics trying to kill the king. But it didn't matter that it was fake, it whipped up this massive anti-Catholic panic. That led directly to the Exclusion Crisis, where Parliament was basically in a full-blown panic, trying to block the king's brother, James, a Catholic, from ever getting the crown. And then, bam, right at the peak of all this chaos in 1681, Dryden drops his poem.
And this was the huge dilemma facing the entire country. On one side, you had James, the Duke of York. He was the king's brother, the legal heir, the next in line. The problem? He was Catholic. And on the other side, you have the Duke of Monmouth, the king's son. He was Protestant, he was super popular with the people, but he was illegitimate. He had no legal claim to the throne at all. So the country was just torn in two.
Now, Dryden didn't just write a pamphlet or give a speech. No, he chose his weapon very, very carefully to make his point in this incredibly high-stakes game.
And that weapon was political satire. We're not just talking about telling a few jokes here. This was about using wit, irony, and ridicule like a surgeon's scalpel to dissect the whole political mess, expose his opponents for their dangerous ambitions, and, at the end of the day, defend the stability of the monarchy.
And you know, Dryden himself told us what he was trying to do. He wasn't just aiming for cheap shots. He saw his satire as a kind of moral medicine for the country. Yeah, it might taste bitter, but it was designed to correct the country's flaws and hopefully heal the deep, deep divisions that were tearing the nation apart.
His method was just so precise. He used a poetic form called the heroic couplet. So think tight, rhyming pairs of lines with this really steady rhythm. This structure gave his arguments this elegant, sharp, and totally unforgettable quality. It's almost like he was crafting political slogans, but as a master poet.
And just listen to how devastatingly effective this was. When he describes Achitophel, that's the Earl of Shaftesbury, remember, he boils the guy's entire political career down to one single, damning line. He's not interested in helping the country, he is resolved to ruin or to rule the state. I mean, wow,
That is a perfect takedown of pure destructive ambition.
Dryden also uses the king's voice to issue this really powerful warning to his son Monmouth. He compares him to Samson, the guy who brought the whole temple crashing down on everyone, including himself. The message couldn't be clearer. If you try to shake the pillars of the state, you're going to get crushed in the wreckage right along with everybody else.
Okay, so a clever political poem from 1681. For sure, but why are we still talking about it today? I mean, what makes this more than just some dusty historical footnote?
Well, it's because it's working on so many different levels. It's a brilliant piece of propaganda that uses a sacred biblical story to make a political point. It digs into those timeless questions about legitimate rule versus what the public wants, and it explores those universal human things, ambition, loyalty, betrayal, with language so masterful that it basically set the gold standard for satire for centuries to come.
And here's the kicker. Dryden's poem wasn't just clever, it turned out to be prophetic. Just 4 years after it was published, the Duke of Monmouth did exactly what the poem warned he would do. He led a rebellion to try and seize the throne. It failed horribly, and he was executed. Dryden's satirical warning had become a tragic, real-life headline.
And that leaves us with a final thought, one that feels pretty relevant for our own, often fiercely divided times. Dryden proved that a poem could be a powerful political weapon, one that could shape public opinion, and even, in a way, predict the future. So it really makes you wonder, right? In an age like ours, can art, in all its forms, still be the most powerful, the most effective way to argue, to persuade, and maybe even to heal?